Welcome, Christine, to the Style to Speak podcast. I'm really excited to have you on here. My listeners are going to have so many valuable nuggets that they take away, I know, from you. You have such a heart for the Lord, and you have so many valuable lessons to help my audience learn how to break free from the struggle with weight loss and the struggle with food and all of these things that really sneak up on us and really keep us unhealthy. That's the long and short of it. So thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast and for your time. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me, Ashley Anna. I'm overjoyed to be here.
Okay, we have to start with the story of how we actually connected and how we met. So essentially, I remember, getting on the plane. We were going to Florida, both of us on this plane to Florida. And I think I was in my seat first, and you came and you sat next to me. And I was just listening to my podcast. I try not to talk to people right away. I kind of try to feel it out. Like, do they want to talk?
Right.
Do they,
Right.
do they have something they're doing? And I just remember one of the first things I noticed was I think on your bag, you might have a Bible verse that you were traveling with. And you for sure had some kind of faith-based book. So I was like, oh, well, that's nice. We've got that in common. We're both sisters in Christ.
Yes.
It's Christine. She's typing away. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to give her space. And I was listening to my audiobook or watching my movie. So it was totally fine. I'll let you kind of take it from there. Maybe I'll let you.
Yeah, it was so fun and interesting because I actually pulled out my laptop and I was actually editing my book that's forthcoming in January of 2025. So, yeah, and then we picked up a conversation. You probably saw my Bible in my purse too.
Yeah.
And you said, I think you asked me like, "Where are you going?" And that's how we started our conversation. And I cannot believe that we actually were on the same plane in the same row and heading to the exact same conference for writers and speakers and women ministry or women in business for the
Yes.
kingdom. Yes. It was
Really.
amazing.
So we kind of were like, oh, see you there, and kind of briefly connected on that. And um we talked a little bit about sugar because that's a huge part of your journey. Sugar is a really tough thing. And actually, as we record this, it's going to be October 31st tomorrow. So
Yes.
candy galore. And it's not that I am completely not eating sugar or anything like that, but I really do my best to limit, especially some of the refined sugars. I even like to sweeten my coffee with just like a teaspoon or two of maple syrup, like things like that. So we kind of talked along those lines, but I can't help but feel the weight. And I can't imagine how other women who are maybe trying to diet or trying to lose weight feel around this time of year when there are so many temptations and traditions and things that you have to say no to. So speaking of that, we talked a little bit, Christine and I, just kind of in our conversations as friends, like fitting in, especially in today's food culture, can
Right.
be really difficult when you are trying to live a healthier lifestyle, especially if you're doing it for the purpose of taking care of your body. So, can you tell me a little bit about how your faith has helped you to basically get on this journey where you have lost 100 pounds? How did you get to that point? And how it's helped you to quote unquote fit in? What does that actually mean?
Yes.
Christine talks about it.
Right. That is such a loaded question. So I'm so glad that you it just started out by acknowledging that there's so many of us women that have struggled with weight for so many years. I call it my 30 years of weary weight loss wandering. And it was so difficult and it weighed me down in more ways than just being physically unfit. I was also emotionally coping, comforting myself with food. I was spiritually very apathetic. I don't blame that specifically on my weight. That's just all part of my God story, right? So if we back up to where God did get my attention about my health and my morbid obesity, I went on a trip, 25th anniversary trip with my husband to the Rocky Mountains in Colorado, Rocky Mountain National Park. And my husband wanted to climb up to Nymph Lake, And when I looked at the trail marker, I thought, well, it's only a half a mile. I can do that, right? But I looked up at the path and it was like a pretty straight up incline for me. Now, looking back in hindsight, it is a moderate path. It's not that extreme, but I went up about halfway up that path and I just could not take another step. I
Mm,
started sucking in air and I begged off from going to find the lake with my husband. And he's like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yes." I'm like, I can't take another step." So he went on without me with my permission. And I just sat on a stump on the side of that path. And in that moment, I realized that this is like my big God aha light bulb moment. I remember saying something like, "God, I just want to feel better. Like, I want to stop disappointing my husband. I want to stop disappointing myself. I want to stop sitting on the sidelines of life. I just want to feel better." At that point, being overweight and eventually morbidly obese for 30 years, I had given up on hope of losing weight because I did all those years yo-yo dieting, up and down, up and down. So in that moment, praise God. Like he met me in that moment because I feel like he put a new resolve in my heart to go home and to take ownership of my health. And that's exactly where my health and healing journey came. That's where it began. And that's how I eventually ended up losing a little more than 100 pounds and have been able to maintain a healthy weight. I'm in my seventh year now of maintaining a healthy weight.
that's
And so, yeah, I know we're going to talk a lot about fitting in. But yes, the faith story, the fitting in has a lot to do with that.
okay. So let's dig in a little bit into your faith story because starting off when you were, well, and you may be like way past that now, but when you were at your heaviest, tell
Mhm.
me some of the ways externally and
Yes.
internally, actually, I would say
Yes. Yeah.
externally and internally, you were battling fitting in
Mm.
and
Yes.
how, like the specifics on that.
Yeah. So even just like physically, practically, I could not fit into roller coaster seats. So when I would take my kids to a place like Cedar Point, an amusement park, I was embarrassed to even try to fit in. I was barely fitting in airplane seats, which made me very self-conscious. I didn't want to impede on anybody's space. It just made me very uncomfortable. I did not fit into my clothes, of course. I had probably 5 different wardrobes in the back of my closet, just different sizes, and kept them around because I always had hope that I would wear them again. So I didn't those are the physical things that I didn't fit into. And then emotionally and spiritually, I just felt like I never fit in anywhere. I always felt less than, like if I walked into a room full of beautiful women, how do I fit into that circumstance? I don't fit in very well. I was very self-focused, very selfish, very self-focused. What are these women thinking about what I'm eating? Like, what if I do go to the potluck dessert table and get us a brownie? Like, who's judging me for that? Right. So these are all the kinds of things that I battled with. What if I walk into a room and I don't see a seat next to my friend? Am I going to be welcomed at a table? And even walking into faith-based events, that is like it is so ridiculous to that I was in that space, but that's exactly where I was. A lot of rejection, isolation. I stayed home from a lot of events simply because of all of that impact on my emotional health.
Can I ask you spiritually when you're talking about the the judgment, the outer judgment and the feeling less than, the unworthiness, all of those things, how does that tie spiritually into what was going on with you and food?
Yes. Well, that's a great question. I just wrote something in my journal the other day that was like not really an epiphany, but I put some words to it. It was, I was coping and satisfying the cravings of my flesh secretly, because I did a lot of secret eating and I did a lot of, behaviors that put you into a food addiction category, sugar addiction. So I was doing a lot of things secretly but wearing the outward evidence. Like it was very obvious that I was doing something that was not taking care of my health. So now knowing so much more that I do right now about being a recovering sugar addict, sugar and food addict, because I am a weight loss practitioner for sugar addiction behaviors. But knowing all that now, the faith aspect of it that's been brought in is, I never thought that God cared about how I cared about my health. But now I know so much more differently. And I do confess that I'm a recovering food addict, a recovering sugar addict. And I know I have to talk about gluttony. I have to talk about food idolatry. I have to talk about all those things when I go and speak to this issue. And it doesn't just specifically have to be about food. We idolize so many things in our lives, right? We're coping and satisfying the cravings of our flesh in so many ways. But that's the whole faith aspect of it. And God got a hold of my heart and he flipped those cravings upside down. And I no longer was satisfying my cravings with food and destructive self-inflicted behaviors, but very early in my health and healing journey, I started picking up my Bible daily for the first time in my life, and I haven't put it down. And that's where the faith just really grew, blossomed. That's where I find my complete satisfaction and nourishment every single day.
Just got Holy Ghost bumps, I think, when you
Yeah,
said that.
right?
I love that. Oh, that's
Yes.
so good. Okay, so that makes me think of, something that has come to me when you're talking about just, you went to God and God met you where you were at and some of these patterns, but it is
Mhm.
interesting to me how the enemy does use some things, like, with our flesh to tempt us, whether it's food or something else, but then he also condemns us for it. It's
Yes,
big, right?
exactly.
So
Yeah.
I guess I just want to point out that a lot of the things that we struggle with, it's a double down effect when we aren't spiritually healthy,
Mhm.
and when we don't have that heart posture toward the Lord, because whatever we do that is maybe not God's will for our life, or that's, just putting something in the improper place. Food's important, but you can't put food over, you can't rely on food more than you rely on God, right?
Exactly. Yes, and nothing changed in my life until I started picking up his word and nourishing my soul. Like I love to say that I was filling my body with junk food, carbs, addicted to sugar, but now I had so many holes in my soul and now I just let the Lord fill that up and that truly has been so instrumental in helping me develop and use the gift of self-control, which is a beautiful thing when you're having to lose weight and trying to get healthy. Self-control is amazing.
And here's the thing, self-control can feel hard to grasp. Like, what does
Yes.
that mean? So I
Yes.
want to talk about you have this really cute little phrase. I love it. It's God's good smorgasbord.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you have a healthy mindset, or what I like to call a heavenly mindset,
Mm.
around food and around eating. Tell us a little bit about how you've used that phrase or that, idea to
Yes.
really, how did you do that? How did you lose that 100 pounds? And how does
Right?
that phrase fit into that?
Yes. Well, for 30 years, I tried to follow standard American dietary advice, which failed me over and over again because everything in moderation does not work for someone like me. Now, we're all different, we're all uniquely different. And some of us are so hooked on these hyper palatable carbohydrates and foods and sugar. And we're told, like, it's okay to eat these things, or I'm thinking back to like when I would used to eat Weight Watchers frozen meals or Weight Watchers desserts. Those were loaded with sugar. And still they stripped the fat out of them, which is how they could get away with making it low calorie. But anyhow, so I was always tripped up by mantras like everything in moderation. So when I got diagnosed with obstructive sleep apnea, pre-diabetes, and fatty liver disease is the one that really scared me, which I got diagnosed shortly after I came home from that Colorado trip. When I got diagnosed with that, I started going down many rabbit holes of research because I just wanted to know, like, how did my liver get full of fat? And that's where I learned all the things about my hormonal health. That's where I learned that sugar is a major hormone disruptor. And that's where I came to the realization that sugar in moderation is not good for somebody who has metabolic dysfunction like me. That would include the fatty liver, the prediabetes, the type 2 diabetes, the gut issues, all of those things. So I ditched sugar from my diet and that was the first best choice I made. Eventually, after a couple months, I discovered the ketogenic way of eating with intermittent fasting, which is a beautiful gift for spiritual practice as well as physical healing. And that's how I ended up losing the weight.
Wow. Praise God. I'm so happy for you. I'm sure like when you cut out sugar, I was just thinking of all the things that have sugar in it.
Right.
You know?
Everything.
It's a lot of the things, most of the things. Uh,
Mhm.
okay. So I just think I know we'll have to wrap this up pretty soon, but I think it would be helpful to my listeners, especially if they're thinking, okay, Christine, I don't know if I can ever cut out sugar, no matter how thin I want to be or how healthy I want to be. I don't know that I can do that.
Yeah.
How do you help them overcome that? Because that's a big part of what you do. You help people who
Right.
think like, I don't think I could do that. Like it's too
Right.
hard. You help those.
Right. Yeah, well, I have to educate them, right? And just one challenging question I love to ask have people ask themselves, like, what nutritional value is sugar in your diet? Like, there's really no tradition, there's no nutritional value when you stop to think about it. So it is possible to rewire the brain to bust the sugar cravings, okay? And I did it. My coaching clients do it. And it is so fun when they finally get their own light bulb moments a couple weeks into this step by step journey. And they're like, oh my goodness, I am not craving sugar. I don't feel like I have to snack all night long. I have busted that salty, sweet, vicious cycle of snacking in the evening, right? It is possible. It's totally possible to get off of sugar and again, like adopt the God's Good Smorgasbord menu plan, which is, whole foods. I focus on protein. I do eat some low carb vegetables. I will eat some berries, which are lower in sugar occasionally. But it was it was mind blowing to me to think of all those years of dieting where I would try to squeeze in the points or eat the Weight Watchers frozen meals, whatever. And all along I had this good smorgasbord right there.
I mean, that's just it. We were at the
Mhm.
conference. I just have to tie it back because we were talking about that at the beginning.
Yes.
We're at the conference and I think it was a chocolate cake or something that was brought out. And of course, you had specifically asked or requested when you put your order in not to have that. And they brought you
Yes.
out. It looked way better than our cake. I'm going to be honest. This bowl of berries, I think
Yeah.
I don't know if there was cream on top. I'm picturing it with that. Maybe it didn't,
Yes.
but
Yeah, it was
it looked
with some
amazing.
berries. Yeah, yeah, and that's the whole gift of self-control, which is from the Lord, right? It's one of the characteristics of the fruit of the spirit. And so I can go to conferences now. I can sit and there can be a piece of chocolate cake sitting right in front of me and it has absolutely no pull on me. I don't feel like I'm living in denial or not deprivation. And I know that treating my body with good nourishing food, focusing on protein, that I just feel so much more energy.
Okay,
And
I
I
have to ask you that.
fit in.
The energy I have to ask you about because I was
Yes.
like talking to the Lord today on my
Yeah.
drive to drop off my daughter at school.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, Lord, like if I straight up gave up sugar, would I actually have more energy? Because I've thought about it,
Mhm.
but like how much more energy?
Yeah.
Like I feel like it would need to really be worth it.
Yes, right? I challenge everybody to you can do anything for 30 days, right? And you can evaluate. But the thing about the energy that I experienced is when I gave up the sugar, my blood sugar stabilized. And I used to work in a corporate office, and I can remember like around 2 o'clock after lunch, I would want to take a nap so bad. That's because my blood sugar was crashing after the lunch that I had had that was high in carbohydrates. So I don't feel that way in the afternoon anymore. I no longer need to nap. I don't feel like I need that break during the middle of the day. So I do challenge anybody listening to try it for 30 days and just self-evaluate and see how much more energy you have.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan because, like you said, anybody can term. All right, let's talk
Yep.
about okay, we talked about how you actually do have coaching clients for people,
Yes.
uh, women, business professionals who
Yes.
are battling their weight and specifically know that they have a sugar addiction. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, not all of my clients have a sugar addiction, but they definitely all can benefit from cleaning up sugar from their way of eating.
Okay.
Yes.
Just want to make sure I'm saying that part right.
Mhm.
So if you don't, there's two ways to basically connect with you. That's one way. But you
Yes.
also have a book that is releasing. And at the
Yes.
time of this podcast airing, it's going to be, I think, the day of or the day before. Now I'm trying to remember.
Release date is January 21st, 2025.
So that let's talk a little bit about your book because that's
Okay.
another great way to connect with you and to
Yes.
basically get some of that teaching that you're
Right. Exactly. I'm so excited. Like, this book has been in process for 7 years, and it's coming out, like, 7 years to the date that I got a healthy weight. So that's really exciting, but it's called Sugar-Freed: Stop Losing the Weight Loss Battle, Start Gaining the Victory, and I take the reader through, my story and 6 coaching client stories with 4 sections of the book, the first one being resolving it, and then restoring it, your physical health, renewing it, renewing your mind, and redeeming it, redeeming your spiritual walk. And notice I use ing verbs because we are always a work in process. This is a complete sanctification journey that's not going to be complete until we're sitting in heaven, in that fitting at that table with Jesus in the heavenly realms, which I can't wait for. So yeah, I'm super excited about the book. I think it's gonna make a great impact on women like that might not know, well, where do I start? What do you mean you completely quit sugar? And how do you crush your cravings? Like, let me help you. Let me guide you. And then my coaching program actually works hand in hand with the book. The coaching program is also called the Sugar Freed Me Weight Loss Solution.
Oh, perfect. Okay, so I know it's going to be on Amazon, right?
Yes.
So for sure, if you're like you want to run and grab that right now, um, hop into Amazon.
Yes.
Say the title of your book one more time.
Sugar Freed: Stop Losing the Weight Loss Battle, Start Gaining the Victory.
Okay. Or you can look in the show notes because I'm sure you'll send me a link to
Yes.
specifically that. Okay, where else can my listeners find you, Miss Christine?
Yes, on my website, christinetrimpe.com, which you check out the spelling in the show notes. And also, they can grab my free guide called Crush Your Cravings. They can get that at www.crushcravingsguide.com.
Perfect. Okay. Well, thank you so much for sharing your testimony, being like a light for Jesus. You shine so bright, but also just that those practical things of we're taking care of our temple and fitting into your clothes, going on stage. A lot of my women are speakers. A lot of
Yeah,
them they feel really like seen. You're up there and everybody's looking
right,
at you. And so if you are struggling with weight loss or you feel like you're like Christine, it's like I have been overweight for years and years and years and years and nothing seems to be working.
right.
Definitely has a system that has, she is the living proof. It
Yes.
works. And it's
Yeah.
not just that, it's the faith, because I know you
Yes.
talk about that, like you said, the redeeming, the heart posture, giving.
Yes.
So thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Thank you. I love what you're doing too, Ashley, and I'm helping women show up more confidently on the stage. And we can do that no matter what our weight is. I never want people to feel like that God can't use us wherever we are at. So I love what you're doing as well too.
We always talk about the right now body and
Mm,
that our bodies got us to where we are right now. But if you feel called, the Lord will call you just like he did to Christine when she was sitting on that hill and
yes.
he sat next to her and she called out and he was faithful.
Hmm.
And he can be faithful to help you. And guess what? He came to her even though she was not at her ideal weight, and he can come to you too. Your weight has nothing to do with your worthiness or how much you are loved or how adorable you can look in an outfit. Let's just get
Let's get the truth in there, right? That's funny.
all right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Speaker friends, thank you so much for joining me today. If this video helped you to think a little differently about how you can create your own brand aligned wardrobe that helps you shine for Christ, please give this video a thumbs up and hit subscribe, because together we can create a community of Christian women speakers who show up confidently and authentically online and on stage. Thanks so much. We'll see you in the next video.